Okay, so full disclaimer, when I have these interviews with my guests, it's not always very obvious of what will be interesting and what will be stimulating. For example, I had a former guest named Stephen Snyder Hill who was a part of a big sexual scandal as a victim, mind you, at his former university. So, you know, like going into it, like I know that there's going to be a lot of detail that's very engaging and stimulating, which brings me to my next guest, whose name is Jan Hogrewe. She's the owner of Just Jan Spreads. I guess you would classify it as a condiment company. I don't know. I'm a guy. I'm a stupid guy when it comes to stuff like that. So it wasn't really obvious where the interesting elements will come. I mean, because she's not the owner of this big, sexy business, and she's not this heiress or this billionaire success story. What I did walk away with is how inspirational of a woman she is as an entrepreneur. She came from the entertainment industry like I did, or like I do, and she jumped in a totally different sector. And she's been in business for 8 years. She has products on the shelves of some very big retailers here in North America. And what pleased me most are the business lessons that we can all get from this. For those of us who are aspiring entrepreneurs, and for those of us who don't clearly see a path of pursuing our ambitions and our dreams. And it's not a BS product. I've tried at least 4 of her products, and they're very good. Very, very good. And what I walked away with is a sense of happiness for her and people like her, and a sense of respect, and a reminder that sometimes we're a lot closer to fulfilling our goals and ambitions than we actually realize. So anyway, I'm talking too much. Here is our conversation. I like interacting with good people and enterprising people. You have an interesting story. You have what you describe as artisanal fruit spreads and sauces. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What's your story? How did that come to be?
Quite by accident. And I guess I have to say, so I was in the film industry before. My husband at the time and I had a production company, and I had worked at Warner Brothers for a number of years, but that the creativity in doing behind the scenes and featurettes for DVD kind of started changing. It became more of a legal decision within the studio system as to what could be done or said or put on DVD. And the creativity part was totally like whitewashed because of their requirements. And also just going through some personal changes at that time in my life. And I was kind of ready for change. And I've kind of always been someone who's embraced change my whole life. I see that as a pattern, and I feel it's the opposite of what my mother was, which was terrified of change. So I guess I took a page not out of her book, but I looked at that and went, no, I don't want to do that, because she was scared a lot. She, was fearful for her. So anyway, so I think I was ready for change, and I was asked the right question at the right time. So I have always been in the kitchen. I've always loved to cook. I was making mud pies when I was a little girl, and not that a lot of little girls don't do that, but I look back now and think, wow, I actually was doing like little tea parties when I was 4 or 5 years old. So clearly have a thing for making stuff. But anyway, planted a fig tree in my backyard. I went crazy growing figs and decided to make jam with it, and gave it to family and friends, and took it to every wine and cheese party, because what do you do with fig jam except to pair it with cheese or put it in something else, I guess. So ended up meeting someone in the food industry by accident. Was introduced to him through a friend of mine who I was given a jar of my jam to at the local Starbucks. And he said, wow, this is better than what's on the market. Would you ever consider doing this for a living? And I said, yes. And just celebrated our 8-year anniversary. So that's kind of was the beginning of that. And just that question alone sparked a the creative juices that made me go to the market, get some more fruit, try and figure out other flavors because I thought, wow, can't just have one. Let's have like a bunch of flavors. So I kind of got crazy and started doing a bunch of different recipes, and sent my daughters to school with a lot of PB&Js to test new flavors. so, so that's how it all started. And then I just started learning the business. So, um, took about a year and a half. I consulted with this gentleman who was in the food business. Started going to meetings with him, and meeting a food scientist to see how it would be done on a bigger level, on a scale, up to scale, how they would do it in production versus, because there were no cottage licenses at the time I started this. So doing it myself and selling it out of my kitchen was not even an option at that point. And I guess dumb luck for me was to think big already and go, well, I need to have someone else make this, and someone who can buy fruit for their own product so that the scale, economies of scale would be me not just trucking my own fruit. I mean, that it's such a penny business that I wouldn't have been able to afford to do it if I were to have to get the fruit and take it someplace to have it made. So I learned a lot in the year and a half. And in that time, there was a woman who was sitting at a table next to us at a meeting we were having, and she heard that we were in the food industry. She came over to the table and she said, "Hi, I'm the buyer of non-perishables at Home Goods. What kind of products do you have?" And so I said, I have jam and jelly. And she said, "Well, I'd like to meet with you." So 2 weeks later, we met. We had a 5-hour meeting, 5 hours, no joke. And she tasted all my flavors. And she said, "I will wait for you to get these co-packed, and then I'll launch you nationwide." And there you go. So that gave me the justification I needed from a financial standpoint to be able to say, okay, I've got a buyer already. So
That's nuts. Well, I mean, it's nuts in a good kind of way. Like the stars were in alignment for you.
right.
And not just any stars, the right stars. Our next door neighbor had a fig tree, and it was an annoyance to me just have the mushy fruit on the
Yeah.
ground when I would go visit. So yeah, I think that's just a wonderful success story, because a lot of people try to start these kind of businesses, and for many reasons they fail. What I'm curious about is what is your guess in why this gentleman, like what value did this gentleman find in your jam in particular, where he wanted to, expand upon that?
Well, twofold. One is he wanted to consult. So I was a potential customer at that point. But he truly believed in it. He'd never had fig jam either. And I think he tasted that and he was excited, I think, also from a creative standpoint of, wow, well, this would be cool. He was trying to get clients that he could mentor because he had his own line of food products. So I think it was both from a business standpoint and just enthusiastic about helping someone, being able to help someone with the knowledge he already knew. So it was kind of the starting up of new business for him, but also definitely supportive of what I was trying to do in a product that he wasn't that familiar with. He did frozen foods. So I think that's the answer to that one. But again, I think it was being in the right place at the right time. Like you say, the stars aligned, and that's only one story of seems so many to me that have happened along the way in this business. And it wasn't just him, and it wasn't just the woman who's now a very dear friend of mine. She doesn't buy from me at all, from Home Goods now. She's not the buyer for that, but that, and it just seems like these stories kept happening to me. So one woman said, "I'm going to call you Stella because you're in their crew." So I said, "Okay, I like that. I could be Stella."
Is this a very competitive space? And
Yeah.
it's hard for me to get a concept of what it takes to compete for shelf space, and not only that, to have people really gravitate and want your products. Like, Like, do you have an idea of how many products are out there in this space?
Yeah, that's an interesting question, and I my initial idea was to go into gourmet retailers, not chain stores. I wasn't looking to compete with, the large jam companies. I felt like because I started this process thinking, what can you use my product with besides toast? So for me, it was culinary. So I'm thinking, okay, lemon curd, you could make lemon bars with that. Tangerine marmalade, let's glaze fish or chicken with that. So I had other ideas on what to do with it besides PB&J or toast. So for me, as much as going big or go home would be great, I thought start small, and you don't know who will be picking that up and what you can do with that particular jar. And I was really looking to work with chefs, try to get my product into hotels. And I've done that since then, but that's kind of where my head was at. But it is a crowded space. And one of the meetings that I had when I was doing my research was with a distributor, and they distributed to Ralph's or Vaughn's or whatever. And he actually tried to talk me out of even getting in the business. He said, this is a crowded field, costs a lot of money. I don't know if you want to do it. It's very expensive. You won't make a lot of money. We carry pour maman. I mean, literally everything he said to me was trying to talk me out of doing this. And I thought, okay, but there's always room for one more. So I licked my wounds on my way to my car. And I thought, everybody's got a different taste, So just because you have one doesn't mean that there's not another one that's different or better or can be used another way. And taste buds, everybody's taste buds are different. So what's, hot to someone is mild to another. So I just felt like, no, I'm not going to let that guy talk me out of doing this. So um, I did, and I didn't get into big stores right away. We're actually in Bristol Farms now, and that's been going on 2 years, which has been great. And they've been a terrific partner for us. But I did start going out to the onesie, twosie shops, and there was a restaurant out here in Calabasas that was using my fig spread in her turkey sandwich with turkey and ham and goat cheese, and it's delicious. Um, so I kind of went that route, and going to wineries and calling wineries and saying, would you, carry my product, because they do wine and cheese platters to pair with, I want, to pair with things. So it is a competitive space. Um, Shelf space is at a premium for sure. And you have to kind of find your price point that's a sweet spot, and to get customers to taste your product, because they're not going to pick up something new necessarily. They're going to pick up what they know. So we've done hundreds of demos in stores. So we'll go and I'll, serve it with brie or goat cheese or whatever, or make a dessert with some of it and serve it that way. And you get a following that way, which is just the nicest compliment, is people who continue to keep ordering. So
You've made this product and you're actively going out and pitching as well to these different stores to potentially carry your product.
yes.
So when you start getting, some sales and, you're starting to build your level of success, like what was your level of excitement like?
I remember, like, that one meeting just alone with Kimberly was incredible. I just, like, it was a pinch me moment. But the next pinch me moment was when I landed the Queen Mary account. They were just getting ready to open up their tea room, which was a dedication to Princess Diana, and they had a museum attached to it. And I went there before they opened. A friend of mine, actually, who's in the hotel industry, introduced me to them, and I brought my tray of fresh baked scones and all of the things that would go with my product. And the director of food and beverage for that said, wow, these are great. We're done. We would like to feature your product in the tea room, and we'll sell it here. And I remember walking off the ship and, like, it was one of those, like, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god. So yeah, it was pretty cool. And I keep having those moments. So I mean, and none, it never gets old. It never gets old. Even if it's one store in North Carolina or wherever it is, I mean, I love having the interaction of a face-to-face meeting, of course, but aside from that, just the knowledge that someone liked my product enough to put it on their shelves and promote it with their customers is like, okay, it's great.
What I'm hearing is, these are great companies, Bristol Farms, Home Goods.
Mhm.
Who else carries your product?
I have been for 6 years making curds for Williams-Sonoma. It's under their label, but it does have our name in the fine print. That was another pinch me moment. Again, right place, right time. Followed up with them on their curds and just product in general, and sent samples off and got a call that they liked mine so well they would like me to do 3 for them. And that was literally a year and a half into the start of the company. And I was blown away and overwhelmed, to be honest. And then thankfully, Chris, who's my partner now, he came on board part-time after I just was like, I can't juggle all this by myself. It was going so fast. Things were happening so quickly that I was feeling like I was spinning plates. I just didn't want any of them to drop and break. But yeah, I did some product for Sur La Table as well. We co-branded a line. There were about 9 items that we co-branded together, and so it's been cool. And I love the collaborative part of this and the creative part of this, and worked with one of the chefs that was on the Queen Mary. We did a special project together. He used one of my products in his barbecue sauce, and so it's been, yeah.
What are the various combinations and flavors that you have?
So I started out with the Cadota fig, which is the green fig that I'm hoping isn't making your backyard a mess. But I'm going to send you that jar, by the way. So when we're done with this, you have to tell me where I'm going to ship this to, because you got to have that. So we've got the fig tangerine marmalade, not orange, just is sweeter and not as bitter. I mean, some people like the bitterness. I wasn't crazy about it. And growing up in Burbank, we had this tangerine tree in the backyard that was so flavorful and bright and juicy that I thought, okay, I'm making mine taste like that. So we have that. I have a Meyer lemon curd. Again, Meyer lemon tree in my backyard in Burbank, so I kind of went there. I have an apricot pepper, so it's got a little jalapeno, so sweet, hot. Pumpkin butter, tastes like pumpkin pie in a jar. Seedless raspberry, organic strawberry, and a tangerine sriracha that again, Chris, my partner, he developed that using my marmalade, and he made a homemade sriracha and put them together. And we actually won a major food award with that recipe. And it's good. It's hot though, but it's great. It's great on everything: chicken wings and avocado toast and eggs and Bloody Marys. And
I don't expect you to share too much of your trade secret. Like, what's the process? Like, what's the process of coming up with all these different flavors? I mean, I know at some point there's a brainstorming session, but like how would you describe that process?
The process starts with kind of seasonality, I guess, first, but also, and I'm not really looking at who else is doing what. I really concentrate on what is it that I like, because I feel that it's my love of whatever that fruit or that ingredient is, and my passion to make it the best that it can be, is what translates and gets in the jar. It might sound strange to people, but I've had people say, I can taste the passion in the jar. I can taste the love you put in this product, or it reminds me of something my grandma makes. And those are the things that I think about as I'm doing this. So like, for instance, I had a balsamic onion, which was so good, but people didn't know what to do with it. Unless they tasted it and then they went, oh, wow. But it would sit on the shelf and people were like, I don't know. What do I do with a balsamic onion? It tasted like In-N-Out animal fries. So if you can picture the onions there, that was what was kind of anyway. So the process is starting out, of course, with what do I like to make? And then I do some testing at home, kind of play with it. I never use a lot of sugar, so that's why my products are actually called spreads instead of a jam or jelly, because I don't use enough sugar to be able to label it that, which I didn't know until I started getting in the business. Like, I'm not making a jam? Okay, that's fine. So I play with the recipe, get it how I want it, and then that samples of that and my formula go to the co-packer, and then they do what's called a bench sample. which is to kind of test it and make sure their ingredients are going to come out and, the end result will be like mine before they will scale it up and do them in 150-gallon kettles. They send me samples, we kind of back and forth. Does it need to be tweaked? More this, more that, less this. And then I do my labels. I designed my labels and get those printed and send them off. And then they do their production date and we're done. And then I get them back, and that the co-packer that I initially contacted, that I got involved with, they did 6 of the 8 exactly like mine in a side-by-side test. So that's when I knew I had the right folks doing my stuff. So, and they do it by hand in small batches. So,
Are you familiar with Gary Vaynerchuk?
should I be? I'm writing this name down right now.
He's, the quick blurb on him is he was one of the early investors, I think, in Facebook and Twitter. He missed out on Uber, and he's parlayed a lot of his knowledge as like a second generation immigrant into, forming a media company. And one of the things he advocates as being a diehard entrepreneur is not worrying about what your competitors are doing, and just really focus on what it is that you do and what you bring to the table. And I'm hearing a lot of that with you. like there's not an emphasis on you, looking at what competitor A, B, and C are doing. You were just totally locked in to what you could contribute to your product. Is that a fair thing to say?
That's an absolute fair thing to say. I didn't really think about what everyone else was doing. I'm aware of what they're doing because I felt like, obviously, on a business, spreadsheet standpoint, I needed to know who the competition was, or who the products that were similar to mine, both from a price point and a flavor point, so that when I would be posed with that question, what is your product like? If they hadn't tasted it, well, it's kind of like this or this, so that they could price it similar to whatever that is. If they had other, fruit spread products that were, kind of like mine, they want to know where you fall in the category. So, but to answer your question is no, yes, he's right. You're right. I don't look at that as where I start. I start with what I want to make, and I want to make it as best as it can be.
How wide is the distribution? You mentioned over here on the West Coast, I think Nevada, and obviously the LA area, North Carolina.
We are, primarily the biggest distribution, or the biggest swath, if you will, is on the Pacific Northwest. So we're in a market of choice stores up in Oregon. We've got some stores in Washington, definitely California and Southern California, of course, with Bristol Farms. They're our only chain store that we're in currently. We are in a lot of gourmet retailers from here to the East Coast. I couldn't name them all off the top of my head. We've actually been working with a wholesale site that has helped our business out tremendously. And it's a place where these gourmet retailers can go and find different products that they want. And we just drop ship from our place here in California to them. So we've picked up a lot of clients since July of last year that have given us more exposure. We're in, not Massachusetts, where are we? Rhode Island, and we're kind of spotty along the East Coast, but here, there, and Texas. and we're just hoping to continue to expand.
You and I kind of come from the same space. I was in the home entertainment space.
Oh, wow.
With digital distribution and Blu-ray and DVD. But one of the things I'm wondering about, looking back, there's some building blocks to your success. Somewhere along the way, you've picked or you've acquired skills in the kitchen, maybe professionally. What would you identify as the building blocks to your success?
Well, the first thing I would have to say is trusting my gut. That is hands down the first answer, because I feel like when you start second guessing yourself, mean, it was just like me not hesitating when I was asked, would you ever do this for a living? And I said, yes. I didn't even think about all the steps that would come before answering that question. I just answered. So that was the trust your gut part. As far as the other building blocks, I feel like I didn't have fear. I guess you're not, if you don't know what you're getting into, I mean, I know a lot of people are fearful of that, but I felt as if I didn't take this opportunity to at least see or go down this path, then I would have missed an opportunity. So I feel like, again, trusting your gut, and then having the confidence to trust that, so that you can go to the next step, which is, okay, now how do I get to the next level of this project? I need to learn. I need to do my research. I need to do my homework. And that was a big part of it. It was me not being afraid to ask questions and not being afraid to not know, So I think I remember sitting it was like after I had the product done, I remember sitting at my computer and I thought, okay, it's not going to sell itself off the shelves. I have to do something. This is on me. So I literally would make a list of the 10 places I wanted to call that day to say, hi, would you mind would you mind me sending you samples of my products so you could taste it to see if it might be a fit in your store, in your cheese store, in your whatever it was. And that was like, I had to literally put it into gear for that, because there's obviously a fear of rejection. But then I had to say, well, wait, what's the worst they can say? No, we already have product like that. And I say, okay, thank you. Next. And then you go to the next call. So I think there's a fear factor that goes along with being an entrepreneur, but you have to look past that if you want to follow this dream, or you want to create what you're passionate about. You have to look past that and say, okay, what's the worst they can say? No. Okay, fine. So I think that's part of it. It's definitely doing your research and your homework. I mean, I can't tell you how much. I'm not one to read necessarily. I'm not good at that. I will do it if I have to, but I had to get into all the nuances of being in an industry I knew nothing about, other than the fact that I love to cook. But that's not enough. I had to understand the process and what it takes, because you can't just say, oh, well, I've got this great recipe and I want it to go on the shelf. There's so much in between great recipe and shelf that there was a lot for me to learn. There's a whole language. It's a whole language. And I think it's funny, I didn't realize how much. I mean, I've learned so much in 8 years, and I keep learning, because everything changes, and FDA, and there's other parts of the food industry that can drive you crazy, but you have to be compliant in order to continue, to sell product. So there's a lot of learning and science and chemistry behind all of this that I didn't even know I was getting into when I started. Maybe I wouldn't have jumped in so fast, but I think that's another one of the building blocks, is to do the homework, and to just know that, like I say, if you don't take that chance, if you don't take that risk, you might look back and go, wow, I wish I would have done that. And I just took that. I took it and ran with it.
I say, what would my 75 or 80-year-old self say about this moment? It's like, is it something I'm going to be deeply regretful of, or is it something, I like to be in a position where I go, man, I'm glad that I at least took gave a shot to whatever that endeavor was. So what is your support system telling you during this whole process early on?
So support system were my 2 daughters and friends. They would tell me which flavors they liked and didn't like, but I don't think we hit any that were bad. I mean, I had one that I did that I loved pomegranate, and I thought orange would be cool. But then when you mix red and orange, eventually it gets brown. So it wasn't real appetizing looking in the jar. So I thought, okay, we got to skip that. It tasted fine, but it didn't, it aged badly. Anyway, so support system were my kids, for sure. They were the first line of support and were very excited for me. They were willing to try anything. I can't even tell you how many things they tried. Bless their little hearts. And then friends. The encouragement from friends was so cool. Chris, my partner, being one of them, I would bring him a jar at his work and go, "Hey, you got to try this." Okay. And everyone's willing to try. I mean, thankfully it's food and people like to eat. So, you're kind of in a win-win situation there in the first place. But, and I have to, since I'm just talking about him anyway, as I would continue to bring him new products to try, and then I would say, "Hey, I got this account. Hey, I got the Williams-Sonoma account. Hey, I got the Queen Mary." He's like, "Oh my God." So when I did finally say, "Would you maybe," his area of expertise, he graduated in marketing, was his degree, with a minor in entrepreneurship. So kind of like the perfect person to partner with. And I said, "Would you be willing to come on board and at least help me part-time for a while, because I can't do this all myself?" And he didn't hesitate. So there's that other entrepreneur spirit. He's like, "Sure." He said, "I already knew if you were to ask me if I wanted to join you, I was going to say yes." So there you go. So we did that part-time for a year, and then he came on full-time. And his support and his just having another person to talk to and bounce ideas off of and kind of troubleshoot, navigate and all that, has been such a relief, because I wouldn't be here 8 years later if it weren't for him and if it weren't for the people that supported me early on. But I also I want to acknowledge, this is going to make me choke up. I need to acknowledge the customers who continue to purchase, but not just purchase, that send me. I literally got a handwritten note from a woman who tried my lemon curd and said it was so good. It made her sit down and write me a note to tell me that she loved it so much. And that is priceless. Like, I never thought what I was doing would actually get somebody to write me a letter or to tell me that it reminds them of their childhood. That is, that's the best compliment I could get. So that is a continual support system that I have, are the people that are customers and that find me at shows and say, "When's your next show? I want to go to the next one. And when are you having new products out?" And it's incredible. It really is. I can't describe how that feels. And my kids still support me. So it's great.
Really filled you up.
I don't want to do anything else. When this whole virus started, my first fear was, "Oh my God, how are we going to do this?" Because there's nothing else I want to do. But we're managing.
So with that, how are you managing this once in a lifetime challenge, the anxiety, competition? How are you keeping yourself on a path where you're just pushing forward?
I would say the first 5 weeks, I was in a place, and again, probably not unlike anyone else who's been, who has their own business or has a business or has a job. We're all kind of trying to look at this as, what is it? How do we get through it? It's, clear that it's not going to go away. So it's something we're now going to have to deal with on a regular basis. But, so that was kind of the initial part, is, okay, how do we just kind of get through this short little period, like one day at a time? And then the next part was, all right, so we have product to sell. We still have customers. We lost some customers along the way already because they shut all their stores. So that has been challenging, of course. Business dropped dramatically because, of course, everyone's now in hunker down, oh my gosh mode, as were we. But to answer your question, again, I'm not looking at the competition, looking at what can we do. So we put out a guide to pickling and preserving, and if you've got some fruit that's going bad, here's what you need to do with it. We went out to help mode into, let's see what we can do to help people who've got stuff that they don't know how they want to preserve it for long term, because we don't know what's happening right now. So we kind of not giving away all our trade secrets, but it's not a trade secret. Anyone can make jam, but just to say, here's what you can do with what you have on hand. And we did put it up on our website, which was kind of cool. Chris was like, we should figure out something we can do to help people. And so that was like the first thing we kind of did. But going forward now, we're seeing, okay, orders are starting to pick up. People are ordering online and having it delivered. So we've seen an uptick in our website sales, which has never been what it was before, because we were just busy doing demos in stores, and that was kind of our last place. But I have decided to put my money where my hope and optimism lie, and that is to put out a new product. So we're going to launch a new pineapple curd in June. It is so good. Again, I always go, what can I make with that? And the first thing that comes to mind is a cocktail. I'm not sure that's a product of what's happening right now, or I just like to make, I've honed my cocktail skills during this virus, and using my product in them. But anyway, so I've decided that to continue to make it interesting and keep people engaged in our business and what we're doing, was to create something else, a new product that we haven't ever had before. And I kind of like to keep being able to do that. Of course, that, it comes down to financial and juggling to make sure that we can sell what we make. But yeah, I'm really confident that this is going to be a great product and out there, and people will embrace it and just keep moving forward.
This is an interesting business case, because my opinion, and I don't think by far I'm the first one to say it, is like in 2020, whatever line of work you're in, you're that, and you're also a media company or a tech company, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
So like with you, and coincidentally, you reinforce one of Gary Vaynerchuk's tenets, and if I'm getting it right, you expanded beyond your product and you engaged people with information, like useful information, right? Mm. So I think one of the wonderful things about you being a success story is, and not knowing what your background is educationally, you came from a different industry. You didn't look for reasons to shoot yourself in the foot or just slow down. And with that, I'm interested, is there any inner dialogue or any voices or critiques that you're glad that you ignored?
It wouldn't have even been inner dialogue. No, because I was never fearful. I don't know why. I really don't. I can't answer that part of it. Kind of crazy. I mean, maybe it was the fact that at the time I started it, like I say, I was going through some personal things at the time. It was a challenging time in my life. And this business gave me a space to go that was like new and exciting and creative. And it was mine to build, mine to create, mine to mold and shape. But I think the outer dialogue would have been like that gentleman I was talking about, who basically tried to talk me out of doing it. And I thought, I'm not going to listen to that, because I'm an optimistic person by nature. So any negative blah 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 in my ears, like, you know what? I don't want to hear that, because I believe in what I'm doing. So I have the choice to either go forward or listen to this blah blah, and I chose not to. And that's a good thing. So I guess, yeah. And to move forward is the only way to go. I mean, I'm never been one to go back anyway, on a lot of levels, but this is a place where I know this is it for me. So we're doing it somehow. And I've always landed on my feet. So here you go. It's not changing now.
Do you have a larger, more grand vision for your business?
Well, just to keep it going, for one, Chris has been developing a gluten-free flour blend. It's been going on for a couple of years now, I should say, to get something that will taste not like cardboard and not have that weird granular taste. So it's been a process, and I'm kind of learning. It's a whole new world, dealing with flour, and that's a whole nother chemistry, education, because there's so many types of flour out there: rice, oat, almond, flax. I mean, you could go on and on. But anyway, so trying to get the right balance so that people can do actual cup for cup and it tastes really good has been a process. So we're going to be launching a gluten-free snickerdoodle cookie mix this year. And have been talking to the folks that when we've met people when I've baked with the flour, liked it so much they didn't know it was gluten-free, which is awesome. And so our hope is to do a gluten-free flour blend for consumers. Right now we're doing it actually for a CBD and THC company, a cookie company who does cookies here in California, Dr. Norm's. I got to mention her. We went into the food business at the same time. Anyway, so we're doing it in 25-pound bags right now, but we want to do a consumer, like a, pound, 1 pound, 2 pound bag for consumer market, but also the line of cookie mixes. So, and at some point, I would love to do some of the things that I bake with, that I use my product in now, to actually have a line of baked goods. I'd love to do my lemon bars. I have an oat bar that I use my fig spread in. So that's down the line. But to just keep kind of following this path in the food world, I just, I feel like there's no limits, really, because it's just a part of being creative and finding the right fits for our product and people who continue to like it. So, yeah, I'm always trying to think, I don't want to say outside the box, but just try and figure out different ways we can do this to keep it going. So
You're talking about innovation.
Yeah, you're right. Thank you for putting a word on it. Mine was less succinct than that. But you're
what
right.
would you what would you say to people who are timid and fearful of jumping into a space or an industry that they're completely foreign to?
It's scary. Like I say, I think the first thing would be to trust your gut and not be afraid to ask questions. Seek out answers to the things that can take you to what the end result is of whatever that is you want to create or whatever you want to do. It's almost kind of like backing into it in a way. So it's like my end result is this, but to get here, what are all the steps I need to kind of know beforehand? And I mean, there's so much information out there. If I think about, it's so accessible now. Whereas, I think about when I was in school, it's like, you couldn't look anything up. You had to remember the name of that band you wanted to talk to your friend about, or that actor. You couldn't look up IMDb and go, oh yeah, that's who that is. So, the information is there. And to get the support of friends, start talking about it, making your list of, why you want to do this maybe, or just, I think getting support from friends and family is key. And then just taking that to the next level, which is to do a prototype or in my case, do some jars at home and say, okay, let's start asking people their opinion. Just start making calls and say, hey, would you try this? Or would you take a look at whatever this is I'm creating? And people are really willing to help. It's a cool find, if you will, because, it can be scary for sure. And again, I go back to what's the worst they can say is no. And you say, okay, thanks anyway. And then you move on. But if you believe it, if you truly have the passion and you believe in what it is you're doing, I feel like that's half the battle right there.
Do you have any final thoughts on the journey or what's to come forward?
The journey is definitely a lifestyle choice that I can't imagine not doing. It's tricky. It's challenging. It's ever changing. It's so many uncertainties, especially right now. But I feel like I've kind of dug into that and just, like I say, embrace it to the best that I can embrace it to go forward. Sorry, I lost my train of thought. You want to say that again?
Well,
That's what happens in the fog of all this.
what your final thoughts are, and like I look at you and like, I can do this all day. The podcast, I can edit for hours and I can, spend a ton of time doing graphics and coming up with ideas for standalone episodes and I'm not resentful of it. Now,
Right.
if dedicating the same amount of time to a job, it could be painstaking, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
and I think it would help more people to hear your story and to understand that, devoting a lot of time into your business is much different than devoting a lot of time to a 9 to 5 job or whatever.
No, you're right. And I think so. I had the 9 to 5 job. I did work at Warner Brothers in the corporate world before we had the production company and before just Jan's. But having a job that you can transition from into that, I was spending about an hour or maybe a couple of hours a day designing labels and my logo and trying to come up with the recipes. And so just kind of dedicating some time to it on a daily basis and not just, I dove in mentally head first, but I also knew that I had to keep the other part of the business stuff going just to be able to finance what I was trying to do. So I think that that's a key point that I should say. I didn't just jump off and go, okay, cool, I'm in this now. I had to kind of, I took the time to learn the business while I was still working my other job. And although that's a lot to do, again, if you're driven by that passion and that desire to do your own thing, there's really, I don't want to say nothing that can stop you, but it's definitely helpful to have something else going at the same time.
How do people get in contact with you via your website, social media, if they're, no matter where they are, if they're looking to get your product from various stores, you want to remind people?
So in California, of course, Bristol Farms, excuse me. And the best place to look right now is on our website, justjans.com. And there is a where to buy section there. So that can also direct you to locations across the US, stores that you can purchase. A lot of them are shipping, of course, or doing curbside pickup right now. So we do have our own website, so we can shop there. We do a lot of custom orders too, custom gift baskets and things of that nature. And Amazon, although we're running low on Amazon right now, so I'd probably say go to our website because we're doing free shipping on every order right now, just to help out because, And then our social media, so Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Pinterest are all under Just Jan's Spreads. So that's JUSTJANS SPREADS. And that's our social. So yeah, that's those are the ways to get a hold of us. And if you have any questions or if anybody has any questions, they can email us through the website.
Well, it's been good. And I'm glad we had a chance to link up and have you to share your business and what a great success story this is. So, yeah, I appreciate it. My pleasure.
Oh my God, you're as an interviewer. Awesome. Thank you so much. Thanks for having me. I would like to send you a little care package to say thank you for having me on your show.
Oh, I appreciate that.
Anything you don't like?
Orange. I don't like orange.
I don't have any orange, so there you go. I didn't either. That's why I did the tangerine.
I don't like orange. I don't like Corona. Don't send any of that, please.
I won't.
But no, I appreciate that. When you were describing all the various flavors with cheese and whatnot, it reminded me of my time in Europe. How they use a lot of breads and cheese and spreads and whatnot. And
I can't wait to go back.
You and I both. I would very much like a vacation, but I'm scared I'm very cautious of traveling on a plane right now.
Yeah, I won't go yet. Some pictures came up, actually, the memories that you have on Facebook with one of my daughters, and we were in Paris, and I took pictures of this giant burrata cheese on top of this prosciutto or arugula salad in
Hmm.
Paris. And I just thought, oh, I want to go back. In fact, the waiter was so funny. He's like, you don't like, I mean, it was literally the size of a softball. And there were just two of us eating it. We still had steak frites coming. So I was like, no, but we could feed a family of four with this cheese. But anyway, I digress. Yeah, I miss travel. So hopefully next year, I don't know.
Well, we'll just have to see how this thing plays out, man. I
I
don't think
know.
anybody really knows just yet.
No, we don't. Where in Europe will you want to go back? Where will be your first stop?
If I had to go back somewhere, I would go back to Italy. I don't think I've had food as good in Italy.
Yeah.
And I lived in Spain. I've been to Paris. I've been to Portugal and Germany, but I probably would go back to Italy just
I
for the
love
food.
it. Yeah. Italy is, there's no bad food in Italy. You could be in the
No,
smallest little, as you know, smallest little village you got lost in and have the most incredible meal. Portugal's on my list though. I've not been to Portugal. I really want to go there.
yeah, Portugal is interesting.
Hmm.
The food is okay, but compared to France and Italy, I don't think it ranks in like the top. So yeah, I'm looking forward to travel again at some point.
Thank you so much for having me. I've enjoyed our conversation so much.
Bye bye.
Bye.